That's good conversation. Exactly. People are gonna assume he's white, and then you're like, "Yo, nah, man, I'm not white, bro. I'm
he's our in. Like, we're gonna send him into like a KKK.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? No, I wanted to do the what you call it. You know the Dave Chappelle, the black guy who's a racist KKK dude.
Oh my god! You should work for Trump. I heard he's hiring.
Actually, I would work for Trump if I had the opportunity because I would like to make the changes that I would like to see. So sometimes you got to go in the hornet's nest to, make changes.
You have such progressive views because I would be like, I would punch him in the face.
But that's the people you need to talk to, though. Like
we need to save this for the podcast.
If you preach into the choir, you're not making changes. The people you need to have conversations with are the people that have different opinions from you. If you sit there, and you just surround yourself with people who have your views, you're never gonna make the connections. And I think that's what wrong with America right now. If you don't like what somebody posts, you freaking delete them, and that's it.
All right, we gotta start recording because we're catching way too much good stuff.
I know.
Yep. I preach this shit every day, bro.
We go. Alright.
Oh, what's up?
Oh, there are your headphones.
Oh, I gotta put on my headphones. Yeah, that's right. I'm acting like this is my first time. Actually, this is like my third time. Oh, yeah, I got music too and everything. Maybe that guy's name wasn't John, because I've been trying to find his name.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Miscommunication podcast. We miss you guys. I'm here, Casino, in the studio with my man's Miro. What up? Girl Hugh.
What up?
And we have a special guest here today, Pierre. Introduce yourself.
A very special guest.
Hey, how's it going? It's Pierre from SalomonFirearms Training. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing very, very good.
All right, thank you for coming in.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Got a bunch of stuff to talk about today.
Oh, yes.
First, let's recap the Boston rally from last weekend. There was the free speech rally, and then there was the counter rally as well. Casino and I actually attended that. I don't know where Hugh was. He fell off the face of the earth.
She was eating pizza.
Oh.
At her safe space.
Oh, I'm not safe yet because I'm more of a healer.
We're not violent people.
Did you get in a fight with him? I didn't get in a fight.
I'm all about healing. Anyways, continue.
But yeah, the rally was interesting. We didn't see too many racists, which we expected to see, which is I guess a good thing. It was for the most part peaceful. From what I saw, I guess.
A large part of it is we got there, and the main rally was gone. They had like maybe 50 people max show up.
So that was probably like around what, 12, 1?
When we got there?
We got there at 12.
We got there like 12, yeah.
12, okay.
But yeah, I guess, the actual free speech rally of the speakers were outnumbered and they just left. They got escorted by the police out and just chilling in paddy wagons so the thing like until 2 o'clock.
Did you guys run into our guests?
We didn't. See that?
The guest from last week, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm like, wait, what?
I was like, you wasn't there.
The thing is, when we got there, the first thing I did was message her on the Facebook message. I was like, yo, we're here. So we want to connect. Dead. Just radio silence.
All right, interesting.
She got shook. It's all
very
good,
interesting.
People
I didn't really expect much. I mean,
we have to explain to listeners what we're talking about because we're just being shady. We did have a guest also plugged in for last week who was going to speak at the free speech rally. And this young woman was on she described herself as a patriot. And she was on I guess, I don't want to say the opposing side because it was actually their rally, but the counter-protest kind of made it the counter-protest rally. But yeah, and she backed out probably 30 minutes before we were supposed to record. And it's just, and seeing how, the only reason I wanted to bring that up is because we see how the free speech or attendees of the free speech rally were. I mean, I followed Joe Biggs. Shout out to him. And he was tweeting from the rally acting as though he was a victim, saying, like, we're not being protected by police. And
It's funny because I saw a bunch of people, like, even after the rally, saying that they're like, "Oh, we were victorious today and spreading the free speech
it was
message,
really
Unite
interesting,
the right."
the coverage.
And
on
I
the
was
other
like,
side.
I'm looking at the tweets. I'm like, there were like 30 of y'all
Yeah,
there.
all
What are
right.
you talking about?
But then all the pictures they took, it was like all the 30 people behind them. So it was like there was a crowd, and there was, like you guys said, like I was at home watching Fox 25 News because I have to diversify where I'm getting my information from, and they were making it seem as though the people at the counter protests were savages. There was one instance where a woman and a young man was arguing, and the young man tried to snatch her flag away, and she actually ended up being dragged on the ground because she wouldn't let the flag go. She had an American flag, nothing like too crazy. And the newscasters, the anchors were just like, "Oh my God, look at these savages! Like, this is so violent." And I'm looking at them like she was literally just in his face like 5 seconds ago.
The media portrays what the media wants to portray.
I
mean, while we were there, I didn't personally see any violence.
There was no violence. There were a few instances where they were like,
in some dude's face.
there were like people who, they were like clearly
antagonizing.
I'm not gonna say they're racist, but they were on that side. I don't know if they're racist. I
They
didn't
were
talk to
of
them.
the Trump wearing variety.
Yeah, and there was one dude wearing like an American flag as a cape, and he was, I don't know what was going on with him, but he was having a screaming match with someone.
I saw him. The big Trump flag.
Yeah. And he
Little
was
Enrique.
getting escorted out by the police because he was about to get his ass whooped. And then there was another guy who, I don't know if it's like the Nazi like code, but he had like the Nazi haircut, the Nazi like polo and khaki pants. I swear it's like a uniform. Like they all wear the same thing.
It was
Tiki torches.
No, his tiki torch was in his car trunk. Come on, man. It was even nightfall.
He didn't want to bring the tiki torch out because they got roasted last time they brought the tiki torch out.
Yeah, and with this guy, like one person just asked him
straight up
was like, "Are you a Nazi?" And he
never
wouldn't say no. He was like, "Oh," he was like, "I'm just."
He said, "Do I look like a Nazi?" Shit along that line. It was just like, dog.
And then people like ask him like, do Black Lives matter to you, like stuff like that, and he just like wouldn't. He wouldn't. He was scared for his life. He wouldn't give a definitive answer.
He sparked a cigarette.
Then he just left.
But that's the thing, though. Should you be beating up someone if they do say that?
Nobody was beating him up. I mean, they were in his face.
Yeah.
He might have gotten beat up, but I mean, like
he might have.
I mean, like there was only like I was there, and then this other black woman was there. We're the only two black people around him, so it was like
okay.
It was like the people who were like questioning him, like asking him if he's a Nazi and asking him if he thinks Black Lives Matter. They were actually there weren't as many black people there as I expected it to be.
Yeah, there was
on the news it was like a sea.
There was a lot
of non-people of color.
Yeah, but black people usually don't come out for that type of stuff. They come out for carnival.
No, I mean,
all the different things.
No, we will not be at carnival tomorrow. I guarantee that.
There were a lot of black people there. They were just more toward like the outside and like
there was a separate section.
Yeah, there was somebody.
I think they were more marching because I saw a lot of people of color marching.
Yeah, when I parked at RCC. So,
but there was also a separate section on the other side of the park where there was
the stand for solidarity.
One person of color speaking.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Is there a video of what actually was spoken during that free speech rally? Is there anything online about that? Or?
I think the Stand for Solidarity, they posted their video. I mean, there's been so much, and I'm kind of like trying to rewind my mind. And I know that NESN or NBC just posted an article about Dee Dee Delgado, and she's part of the Black Lives Matter Cambridge.
Oh,
yeah.
Video.
It was more of like an article written on what she said at the rally.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, before we actually came on, you were making a good point about the whole free speech rally.
Yeah. So, I was watching the video. I probably watched about 2 or 3 videos, and it just seemed like the people were really angry. There was one guy, he had a GoPro, and he was just standing there, and he wasn't really saying anything. And then people were asking, why are you here? What's your opinion? And he said, I didn't have any opinion. And then they said, why would you come to a free speech rally and not have anything to say? And he said that he wanted to listen. And then they just started accosting him, pushing him, and then hitting him on his head.
Wow.
And I think that's really bad. Like, if you oppose someone's ideas, right, if they show up to a rally, I think you should take the time to listen to what they say and then respond back to them. And I think too often people are looking for something to fight against as opposed to something to fight for. So even if there were white Nazis or white people to show up, like, is being violent the answer? What are we setting up? When do you decide that violence is okay and not okay? And I think we have to be careful for that. I think they say like 40,000 people showed up.
Yeah.
And did we actually get to listen to what they said, or did we come up with our own predetermined ideas, So I think you just really have to be careful about stuff like that.
I mean, that's a great point. I actually, when I was at home, like, viewing everything from kind of the objective point of view, there was a doctor, I think his name was like Dr. Sheep or something, and he's really popular. He's a conservative. He's on the conservative side, and he's really popular with kind of people who carry the alt-right agenda, but the things he says, like, doesn't really reflect what they stand for. So I don't really get how they can, like, really follow him. He was actually there, and he had signs up, which I just think is propaganda, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. And it said, like, Black Lives Do Matter. And he had these signs in this event. If you look on his Twitter, his name is Dr. Shiva. It'll pop right up, Boston's free speech rally. And he was, in his rhetoric, he was saying that we need to come together as one. And he was also touching on the fact that he feels like the media is portraying things a little bit more sensationalized than it should be. So from that perspective, I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. But then there's people like Joe Biggs, who was president of the rally, who just a complete sack of shit. So
I think what a lot of people don't realize, or just like don't take the second to stop and think about it, is that not everybody who's conservative leaning or on the right is racist.
Right.
So it is possible that some of the people who are there are conservatives and not racist. Just because you're there doesn't mean
you're racist.
You're racist. Same thing. I mean, there's liberals who are racist. So
absolutely, and I hate when liberals say, "Oh, I can't be racist. I'm black. I can't be racist whatsoever." I'm like, that's such bullshit, dude. There's individual racism. There's systematic racism. There's different levels, and definitely at the individual level, you can be racist.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's just like people think racism is just like the outward expression of it.
Yeah,
shouting obscenities or just like the more blatant in your face racism.
Yeah.
But there's also like the whole like you see someone who's black on the street and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Cross the street, or oh shit, let me call the cops.
Listen, there are certain black people who will be on the same street with me. I'm like, I'm gonna just cross the street. As a woman,
we've all done that though, yo. We've all done that.
I'm gonna just cross the street.
See, I try very hard not to do that, but there are definitely moments where you look at a group of people and you're just like, ooh, should I do that? So yeah, then generally I look at my phone and pretend like I'm doing something.
Right. I mean, with us, it's just like we have that kind of mentality where it's just like, this is my brother, whatever. But then there's situations where we're just like, you know what? I've been through some shit though. So
yeah. We gotta keep it real.
Let me just be on my head on a swivel. But I think like the whole point about what I appreciated seeing it is as our listeners know, is I'm more for unity and know that I do go to Black Lives Matter events and I do support the Black Lives Matter movement, but there's certain disconnect when it comes to Black Lives Matter and kind of having a trust with especially white allies, because there's instances where white allies will try to take over like our cry or our plea for help and try to make it their agenda. And then when they kind of get that buzz and they get what they need from it, they just disappear. And we're still stuck with the same issues we were facing before. But one thing I did appreciate is, for one, seeing people of all races, all ages, families like out there and really protesting and saying, we've had enough with this. It's either they were tired of Trump and his bullshit, or they were just tired of police brutality. Some people were just tired of the fact that there are really white supremacists or people in the KKK who are outwardly expressing their discrimination or their transphobia or their homophobia, and this message of hate that's becoming more publicized. So it's just good to see people unite for the one common factor that hate won't be tolerated in America.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, because you're seeing on social media now where they're finding where they work and then they're
I love that.
They're harassing their employer
that's
guys
the
are leaving.
Use of social media I've ever seen. Like that's social media at its finest.
Yeah.
There was actually someone who was people going back and forth on Facebook for different reasons, but there was one person on Facebook who's always like an antagonizer. This is his reputation, and he was stating that it was dumb for people to show up in such large numbers because we should have just let the KKK come and like racists come or white supremacists come, so we can have them come out and set themselves in like a bear trap. Like, yeah, come out. You know, we're not going to bother you. It's just going to be a few of us yelling at you, whatever. And then take pictures of them and then screw their lives over. Because we saw with Homeboy, he actually went to jail this week.
Oh, he did?
Yes.
Okay.
Which one?
Yeah.
I forgot his name.
Charlottesville, I forget his name.
It's the crybaby Nazi. We call him the crybaby Nazi.
Wasn't there a guy that went to like BU that was part of it or something, and he got like chased out the school or something like that? Yeah.
No,
it was Chris something.
Well, no, that's the bald dude, right?
Yeah.
No, he was talking about a different dude.
Oh, no.
Who went to BU.
We were talking about the bald dude that I don't know if you saw the Vice video. He was in a video. Really.
Oh yeah, I seen him too. Yeah.
He went to jail this week.
Yeah, I seen him
But no,
too.
I was talking about the BU dude. He actually withdrew his application to BU and will not come to BU.
Why not?
Beautiful.
We'll be in for a surprise.
Because all Roxbury were waiting for him with the pit bulls.
Oh man!
But you know, and a good follow up and a good result that I appreciate is that there was actually an article. I think it was published by Huffington Post or Washington Post. It escapes me, but they stated that 63 rallies were actually canceled due to the turnout from Boston. So it was really dope to see that we actually caused change just by showing up and showing out.
What kind of rallies? Like KKK rallies?
It was white. It's
quote unquote free speech rallies.
It was alt-right.
They call them nationalist rallies. Yeah.
Nationalist rallies.
Okay, nationalist.
Yes.
What happened though?
But that huge quote unquote Trump rally is also still gonna happen in September.
So we scared them. They're not racist anymore.
The mother of all rallies.
Yeah, that one. That bullshit.
They're not racist anymore. We fixed it.
They're not racist anymore?
No, they're still racist.
Nah, that's
still
fair.
racist.
They're still pussies. Oh.
They're back to the drawing board. That's all.
They're still pussies. That's cool. That's all.
But
so we have you here for a reason, not just to talk about this. You actually have an event coming up.
Yeah, we have an African American firearm safety course happening on September 16. It's there specifically to target African Americans. You know, it's part of one of our movements that we were actually inspired by Black Guns Matter, Maj Tour, when he held it last year for free. And now we're just trying to specifically target African Americans to learn about firearms and use them safely and, you know, change that narrative of, you know, if you're a black guy with a gun, you got to be a thug or a criminal or anything like that. And, part of the movement is to normalize, you know, a black man with a gun, you know. We were talking earlier off the mic about, you know, Philando, and I think one of the reasons why he died was because of the narrative that if you're a black guy with a gun, that, you know, you're scary, you know, that can't be illegal, you know, or anything like that. So I think it's important for people to get that education and know how to use firearms and interact with law enforcement.
Definitely. I definitely agree with that, especially, you know, after seeing everything that happened in Charlottesville. You know, a lot of the supremacists, they had guns, they were armed, and we as people of color weren't. And just, you know, having the knowledge of firearm safety and the knowledge of when and where you can carry and having your license is important. And I feel like the climate of the country is changing a lot, and a lot of African Americans need to be armed and responsible with their arms. So that's actually dope to me.
Yeah, definitely.
So where's the class going to be?
Class is actually going to be in Dorchester, so it's right in the hood, quote unquote, you know. So it's definitely.
I like Laura Mills.
yeah, you know.
That's the hood.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's off of Mattapan, you know. It's in the area, you know. Places where a lot of people wouldn't go, you know. People always talk, you know, when you hear people, you know, who's not from Boston, you're like, oh yeah, you gotta be careful of, you know, Deathchester and, you know, Murder Brand. They make all these names and stuff.
I'm getting triggered. No pun.
Yeah, some people specifically, you know, they tell me that they roll up their windows, they lock their doors when they're going through these areas, and, you know, it's all part of changing that narrative and taking charge of that story, you know.
Casino and I were actually talking. If you have a license to carry and you get pulled over, Should you offer that information up to the police officer?
My personal opinion is no. My personal opinion. So there are certain states, right, where you have to tell the officer, like you're obligated by law to tell the officer, hey, yeah, you're carrying. So I actually just got pulled over on my way over here because I was actually kind of running late. And then the cop, we're having a conversation. Obviously, I'm wearing an NRA tag, NRA stickers on my car, and veteran plate. So
if you tell him no, I don't know.
Like, nah, man. You lying. So mass, you don't have to volunteer that information, but if they do ask you, you have to answer truthfully. So for me, the way I look at it is, right, I don't want to throw in variables that could potentially damage me. So for me, if I get arrested and I get my license to carry taken, or I face some charges, or whatever, that's going to ruin my business. That's going to ruin my livelihood and the positive impact that I can have in the community. So for me, the way I look at it, if I'm going to get a, $50, $60, $100 ticket, I'm going to take that shit and I'm going to drive on, right? Because I know the worst thing that can happen in that interaction with a law enforcement officer is that I can die, right? Black men are dying all across the country. That's actually one of the fears that I have. I always have guns and ammo with me in the car and stuff. And my fear is that, if I get pulled over by a cop, and, he has a bad temperament or he's not well trained and he sees me with a gun, am I going to have an opportunity to be like, hey, man, I'm a veteran. Hey, I'm an NRA instructor. Hey, am I going to have the opportunity to have that interaction with him? Or am I just going to get shot and then later on they're going to find out that, hey, I'm a good guy? So I don't recommend volunteering that information because it just puts in a variable where you have, you're
stressing the
officer. You're stressing the officer out. You're elevating the situation, and then he might ask you to get out the car. So maybe he wouldn't have asked you to get out the car. Now he asks you for the firearm. He'll ask you to take it, or he'll tell you to unload it or do whatever. So for me, I don't volunteer information. I just take my ticket, I drive on, and then I go fight it in the court system. So that way I don't continue down that path. You want to make your formal interaction with law enforcement in that situation as quick as possible, and you want to get the hell out of there. Get your ticket, drive on, have your day in court, and there's no need for it to escalate to something where, I'm being asked to step out my car and, all the craziness that you often see, on videos online.
Right.
Now, you touched on Philando Castile. In your being a part of the NRA, how did you feel about the lack of a statement from the NRA? Situation happened?
How do I feel about the lack of statement? I'm not surprised. The NRA, if you look at the demographics of the people that support them, they tend to be on the right wing. So, usually people draw the lines, racially, also politically, if you're black, then you're Democrat. You're more likely to be Democrat.
Which is interesting.
Which is not necessarily true.
Right.
We know that for a fact. But, and also if you're a Republican, right-leaning, then you're most likely a white person. So black people, they vote, Democratic politicians who oftentimes are anti-gun. Right, so when you look at the NR's perspective, their one objective is to protect the Second Amendment. So why would they go and jeopardize the base that supports them, right, when you want the NRA to come out and publicly go and support the black community and go and, say whatever you want them to say, for a fact there's going to be backlash, right? So whether you pick, right or left, there are going to be people that are going to boycott you, there are people that are going to be mad at you, and there are going to be people that are burn their NRA cards and stuff like that. So I think it was actually, if you're talking in a strategic point, it's smart for the NRA to not go on the side that doesn't support them politically. A lot of black politicians, not black politicians, but a lot of Democratic politicians are anti-gun, right? So if you're going to go and cater to a base or a group of people that aren't going to support your goals politically or financially, then why would you go out there and put yourself out there? So the NRA kind of had to make a choice. Hey, do we get burned by the Democrats or do we get burned by the Republicans that often support us? And, sometimes silence is the best way of remaining neutral, So.
Well, so my thing with Philando Castile, I get what you're saying, but as far as the NRA goes, if it was a white man killed by police who did the same exact thing, do you think it would be a different rhetoric? Would they have said something? Well, this man was licensed to carry. He announced that to the officer, and he was killed because of it.
Yeah, I think they would probably go out and go along that lines. Yeah. Because there's the lack of controversy. As an organization, as a business, you have to look at things that are going to affect your bottom line. If you are going to go say something, you have to expect and be willing to accept the consequences. Like during the Trump and Hillary and Bernie whole campaign, right? Every time an organization said, hey, I'm for Trump, hey, I'm for Hillary, what happened? There was a boycott full of people. So if you're a smart business, right, you want to try to remain neutral as possible, and just do what you're supposed to do. Like I train a lot of people that I don't share the political views, but I'm not going to go and be like, oh, I'm not going to train white people, I'm not going to train Republicans because da 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 da. I'm here to do a job. I'm here to teach people and educate people about firearms, and whatever else they want to do in their own personal life, then that's for them. So I try to make change by connecting with people where I can. So a lot of times the people I do train, they're white individuals and they're Republicans. I don't agree with a lot of the views of the Republicans. But if I can make a connection with them through the Second Amendment, then I can start making change and, creating influence. If you go on Facebook, right, most of the time you argue on Facebook, do you actually change anybody's mind? No, you don't. You're not creating anything.
You get frustrated and ruin your day.
That was a joke.
Yeah. You're wasting your time. You're not set up in a situation that's conducive to change, which is what we ultimately want to have. So for me, if I want to create change, right, the way you create change is not by preaching to your choir. I can go and be all pro-black and do all those things. Yeah, I already have that base. What you need to do is go talk to those people that are against you, right, that have different opinions, and you need to engage in conversations and find where you can connect. Oftentimes, we have a lot more connections than we believe, but we tend to focus on the hate and the differences that we have. So for me, if I can connect with someone through the two-way and normalize the idea of a black man with a gun and talk about, and be in a neutral position, I'm going to go ahead and do that and not affect my bottom line. Because my success is the black community's success. If I grow up and I end up being $1 million, firearms training company, who do you think is going to benefit from that? A lot of that is the black community. How many black-owned gun ranges do you know that's out there? Name me.
Not around Massachusetts.
And that's part, so that's part of the problem. If you want to go out and protest and do things, sure, like the way I look at it is that there's a war, right? So it's a war going on, and there are different fronts to that war. Some people are going to go out and protest. Some people are going to go and fight through litigation and politics and stuff like that. I want to go and create tangible change, right? I want to go put a license to carry to your hand, help you get an armed security guard, help you become a police officer, help you do things that create literal change. I'm not there to argue with people. And oftentimes, in that situation, you're really not going to create that change you're looking for. So why engage in that type of behavior? It just doesn't make sense to me, in my point.
I mean, I want to, just from my perspective, one thing that I did appreciate that you said is, like, there has to remain a certain neutrality in order to create any type of change. So one thing that I'm on the fence for is because as a woman, I feel like more, especially just women of any color, women need to learn how to protect themselves, because there are situations that we see where women feel like they're not in power, and that's part of the reason that a lot of women face things like sexual harassment, they stay quiet, or sexual assault even, they stay, or domestic violence. But also countering that is that I am concerned because of my profession, where I work in behavioral mental health, that there should be mental evaluation before allowing them to carry or getting your firearm license. Like, what's your stance on that?
So I agree with you. So I majored in criminal justice in college, and I think the stat was like 1 in 5 women are sexually assaulted every year. That's crazy. You look at a group of women and then you're like, damn, You don't. Yeah,
I've done the same thing. I was like, I wonder how many people in this room have gone through things and they will talk about it.
I was just reading an article the other day actually that said 1 in 4 women will be a victim of domestic violence, and of that 1 in 4, like only like 90% actually do something.
Yeah, right. I mean that's complicated because you're talking about gender roles, right? Gender roles where the male is the protector of the house, and the woman and children don't need any training because the guy's gonna take care of it. That narrative is changing. One of the biggest growing demographics in the firearms industry is not only black people but women in general. Women is a huge population that's growing. You're seeing a lot of things that that didn't happen a couple decades ago. Women are in charge, they're in positions of power, they're doing that stuff. So you are seeing a large group group of women growing. And I think that's important in the black community because it's a lot of these women that are raising these young boys, right? So we lose a lot of our sons, our brothers, our cousins, due to violence on the street. So who better to talk to their son than the mother who's going to be there, and you need to have that conversation. I think a long time the black community, their solution to gun violence is, get guns off the street. Oh, guns are bad. Guns are bad. Has that been working? No, it hasn't been working. You look at the death rates in a couple of cities in the country and you realize, holy crap, that's not working. So I do think that women of color do need to get more involved in firearm training and be educated. Even if you don't agree with, carrying a firearm and stuff like that, you at least need to be educated enough to help your son have that positive relationship with firearms and know when to walk away from certain situations.
And what about the mental health aspect?
Mental health is complex, How do you define, what type of mental health issues are good or bad? There are a lot of combat veterans that come overseas, that have PTSD and issues. So are you going to tell me a guy who literally, put his life on the line for the country, got injured, shouldn't have a firearm when he comes back home? If someone is on medication and they're okay and they're not on medication, is that, are they okay to have a license to carry? There are some certain things that are treatable and manageable, and then there are certain things that are not. So where do you draw that line? Who gets to decide, which mental health disorders are good or bad and stuff like that? So I think that's really complicated, and, that's something we do need to sit down. But when you look at Americans, right, you tell Americans, hey, I'll spend $50 billion to, build the next generation of bombs and bullets. They'd be like, yeah, America, bacon, And then you tell Americans you're going to spend half that amount for healthcare, and then, they're upset about it.
Half the world's pissed off.
Yeah. So it's like you can't have it both ways. Americans don't want to invest in healthcare, and then we see that right now. They're like, those lazy people should get off of their butts and do work and stuff like that. So Americans alone are not invested in the healthcare and well-being of all people. So I think it's really complex. How do you decide? Where do you draw the line? What's good? What's bad? And it's really hard. Do I think someone who's mentally unstable should have a firearm? No, but if that person doesn't have an incident, how do you determine if that person is unstable? So are you going to have tests now? Like, how are you going to create a psychological test to decide who's not stable with firearms and who is? There are a lot of symptoms that unless someone tells you that they're having issues, you don't know, right? You go for an interview, you talk to someone for 15 minutes, you don't know what's going on in their head. So it's hard to screen for, it's hard to determine what's good and bad. So I don't think there's a simple answer to that question.
So you have a unique perspective because you're Democratic. You're a Democrat, right?
I'm independent, so I like things from both sides, and I just can't fully identify with one. I used to be a Democrat. For a majority of my life, I was a Democrat.
Okay. So at the very least, you're more liberal.
Yes,
than conservative.
I would say I'm more liberal than conservative. Yes.
Okay. And being a member of the NRA, how do you think maybe that process could be tweaked? Because obviously Democrats, or most Democratic politicians, like you mentioned, want to just strike out gun ownership altogether. Which obviously, I mean, I don't know if I would say I'm Democrat. I'm probably more independent.
Yeah, I'm the same. More independent.
But that's black people's fault, right? So we don't work for politicians. Politicians work for us, right? They're supposed to represent our ideals, our values, whatever that we care about. They're supposed to go to Washington and go and represent us. Why are we voting for people that don't represent our interests? There's a lot of the black community cares about the Second Amendment. They care about protecting themselves. They care about keeping their children safe, from a variety of threats and stuff like that. So why are you going to go and vote for politicians that are anti-gun? Black people love the Clintons, right? But they're not really good for for a long time. Black people, they.
Oh yeah, Bill Clinton was like the first black president.
They're all. But if you look at the policies that they enacted, they really hurt the black community.
Yeah, especially when it prisons pipeline system.
So for me, I can't say I'm a Democrat because that politician is going to go up there and try to get rid of my rights to bear arms. So for me, I'm not going to vote for you. So the black community has to decide. There are values that you can negotiate on and meet people halfway, and there are values that you can't. For me, that's the Second Amendment. That's where I draw my line. If you do not support the Second Amendment, you will not have my vote. Point blank. So that's what black people need to do. They need to draw the line and say, hey, these are the things that's important to us. You do not represent our community and what we care. So if you don't change, then we need to go find somebody else.
I think that Americans need to do that in general.
Yeah.
I mean, we see it with Americans complaining 9 times out of 10 about their politicians, and it's just like, you guys act like you're married to them, you know? And in a sense, like, I know...
Yeah. You know, I'm Democrat, so even though I don't agree with this politician, I have to go with him because, you know, or else the right is going to win.
Like, there's a lot of people who definitely have that mentality.
Yeah, fuck that, man. If that person is not representing you, bro, you're not getting my vote, and that's what people need to do. So when you protest and you do all this stuff, you complain on Facebook, you do all these stuff in these Facebook groups, it needs to be followed by actions. Before you go vote for someone, look at their track record. Look at the things that you value, and if they vote in your interest. If they don't vote in your interest, then why would you give them their vote?
I think a large part of it, though, is the United States is there's definitely a two-party government.
System, yeah.
There are other smaller parties, but for them, I mean, they don't ever really have a chance at taking office. So for the most part, it's two-party system, Republican, Democrat. Mm-hmm. So it's like you kind of have to make more sacrifices in a lot of the elections.
Well, 2A, I'm not willing to sacrifice, so you're not going to get my vote on that, and that's what people need to do. That's what I draw. Maybe for you it's healthcare. Maybe for you it's education. Maybe for you it's, you know, something else. But for me, the Second Amendment is an important thing. Without the Second Amendment, without the ability to protect yourself, your family, your community, you can't have anything else. So for me, that's where it starts. So if you don't support that, you're not going to have my vote. So if Democrats were pro-gun, they would get so many more people. But, you know, gun control is not about guns. It's about controls, you know. So for me, I look at Democrats and Republicans as two sides of the same coin, you know. It's all garbage. Most of these politicians don't care about the people, you know.
A lot of the shit they spew out, a lot of them don't even really believe in it.
Yeah.
Just to get elected.
You have anti-gun politicians who walk around and their entire families are protected by armed men, you know.
Yeah,
so how are you gonna say
that's a great point.
You know, so how are you gonna say you're anti-gun, but then your family, you got armed security guards, you got the public taxpayer dollars paying for state police and regular city to go and protect you. So for me, I'm like, if you don't believe that guns are good, then you should be the first person to say, you know what, I don't want any guns around me. I don't want any guns in my house, in my vicinity. I'm going to show that, you know, we can live a life without firearms. But yeah, most politicians, they're freaking hypocrites, yo. So I'm like, you're not getting my vote, you know. So
you mentioned the you know, having a gun, protecting your family, protecting your community. How do you feel about you know, kind of like the military, like
martial law aspect,
like the militarized version of the police that we kind of have, versus like community policing?
I mean, I don't have a problem with it, to be honest, because you have the government spending millions of dollars on this equipment, right? And then every 10 years, the Army, you know, dumps all that stuff. So what do you want to happen to that equipment? So for me, I'd rather see that equipment be recycled, and I would like to believe that the police force that's in our community are for our community. Mm-hmm. So for me, I think that the repurposing of the materials is good, as opposed to throwing it in a dump or selling it to foreign, you know, countries and foreign armies that will probably later on turn around and fight us.
Selling it to foreign countries. Okay.
I mean, that's what they do all the time. You know, we sell it to countries that are in, you know,
conflict.
Conflict, and then right now they ally with us, and then 10 years later, and then, you know, we're fighting with them. You know, that's what happened in Iraq and freaking Afghanistan. You know,
I was just about to say. That's why they got the vast majority of all their their firearms.
I was trying not to say it, but thank you.
We're all about keeping it real, man. Yo, just keep it 100. And, you know, so for me, I don't have a problem with that. I think a lot of time when people interact with the police, they're emotional, you know, and I think that comes with the black community too. A lot of times, black people, you see them on a thing, they argue with the cops and stuff like that. And then what happens? They end up getting arrested, they end up getting tased and pepper sprayed, shot, and then whatever argument that they had in the beginning lost its validity, because now you're fighting with the cop, and then you catch some charge. Now you can't go to work. Now your kid is without a parent, and you know all this shit happens when you need to hit him with the litigation. Why don't the police go to the suburbs and police the same way they do the inner city? Because
Right.
they know they're going to get hit with litigation. So for me, you violate my civil rights, yeah, go ahead. Beat my ass. I'll take a Rodney King beating, but best believe when I get out, me and my lawyer is going to come and we're going to sue
I have
everybody
no problem.
and
being
the department.
Let me just tell my lawyer real quick while we're on the phone. So,
yeah. But that's the thing. Most people don't do that though. They protest, they do all that stuff, they fight the cops, and then they catch a charge, and then they spend some jail time, and then now because they caught a charge, they can't get a firearm because now they're federally banned,
right.
and and it just sets up a whole system. So for me, if you want to change the policing, you got to change the way. Like, do I think all cops are bad? No, absolutely not. But the bad apples that are out there, hit them with the litigation. Hit him with the litigation. If there's a charge, if there's a court, you see white people do this all the time. The freaking Ted Bundy family, right? Pointing guns at FBI's and stuff like that. What did all of white America do? They poured in their money for their legal defense. They go and support. Whether you agree with them or not, that's not my point. My point is you see a solidarity when it comes to certain groups. They come in and they support a big case because they know the case is against the government. Mm-hmm. So, and that's the thing too. The black community, they all like, oh, the police. Sometimes it's more than the police. It's the government. How is the government policing us? Why is the government able to shoot us without getting positive identification? So in the military, if I'm going to shoot a terrorist, right, I need to get what's called PID, positive identification. I have to see that guy has a gun or he's digging and building an IED or doing anything like that before I shoot him. If I don't shoot him, then I'm going to find my ass in jail. So why is it that law enforcement is able to shoot civilians without getting confirmation of a firearm? It's not even about black and white anymore. It's not about race. It's about why is the government able to kill people without proof? Now, I'm not saying cops have to get shot before they're able to return fire, but why is it that a cop can shoot a citizen on a false pretense of something that's not confirmed?
Easier than you can shoot a potential.
So that's the real question. But we get stuck on race, we get stuck on politics, we get stuck on religion, and we miss the point of big government, which the oligarchy, right? If you look at the distribution of wealth in America, right, there's very few families, very few people that are dictating the entire country. Why is it politicians can run in the White House without being reelected for decades? Why do they get free health care and all this stuff? And the regular day citizen is screwed. So those are the questions and issues that we need to be fighting instead of the low-level, small picture. I'm looking at things at the big picture. I want to solve problems on the systematic level as opposed to, one individual racist cop. Yeah, that one individual racist cop can shoot a black guy, but why are cops able to shoot people without getting PID, So
that's actually a perfect question. I mean, that's definitely something to think about because we witnessed all the tragedies that happened the last year Obama was in office, and more people, with each black man that got killed or each black woman that got killed, people became more and more, like you said, emotionally involved, and it got to a point where it would just be like, Boston police would be driving around, and I remember this, is that people would get pulled over, and you would see 3 cars pull over right behind them, because people were like, this is not happening in our city, things like that happen. So there is that kind of unity, civilian unity that I've seen, but it took something so tragic to happen. But like you said, it's not as simple as yelling at one racist police officer or yelling at one racist police chief or yelling at one racist DA or judge. It's the fact that how are these people getting put into power and what is the policies that, their kind of ideologies made that's still inflicting us today. Because let's be honest, like this country was built on racism.
Absolutely.
It was built on enslaving certain people or keeping other people down in order for a certain group of people to be allowed to be risen up and kind of have that no ceilings barrier. Well, that no ceilings mentality. So, I mean, that's just perfect what you said. I mean, that, like, I hope our listeners are jotting that down. Like, why are they allowed to just kind of go off of pre-assumptions and not really verify what they're doing, what they're here for, or just verify the suspect is really the suspect in question.
Yeah, and I think it's just bullshit to shoot someone because you think he has a gun, and then you find out he's only got a gun. Okay, maybe, people will say how many is too many. I would say 1 is too many, but okay, right. How many people need to die before we say, okay, you thought he had a gun, you thought he had a knife, you thought he had this, and then, yeah. Did you guys see the story about the the autistic kid that had a train and they thought he had a gun.
Yeah.
And then the guy was literally in the prone, arms and legs out, and then he got shot in the back. And I was like, bro, what else do you have to do right? you know? And too often they get away with it. Why? Because we're not following up with litigation. We're not following up with the paperwork, It's not an attack on police officers. It's an attack on a system that's not working. And as a police officer, do you want to kill a citizen? The answer should be no. So police officers should be interested in the solution too, as well as how do we, create policies where people don't have to die. I don't think any cop wakes up every day, saying, "Hey, I want to kill someone today." I think most cops don't wake up with that goal. So law enforcement should also be involved in that thing. But when we're too busy fighting each other, right now you got like the law enforcement organizations, right? They're at war with Black Lives Matter, right?
Oh yeah, the NYPD said that there's I think you posted it. I'm sorry, because the NYPD said that there was
racist against blue lives.
Yeah. Black people were racist against the police.
No, and that's people fighting against something than fighting for something. Are you looking for a solution, or you're just looking to yell at people and place blame and stuff like that? And I think when you have those two sides that aren't proactively looking for a solution, there's never going to be change because you're just too busy fighting someone, and then you can't even remember why the fight started, right? We look at wars across the ocean, and people have been fighting for how long? Like, why are you fighting? And they can't remember. They just remember that they've always been fighting that opposing force.
Some people go back to the Bible and people look at them like,
oh, this used to be our sacred land. I'm like, if y'all stop fighting, you guys could actually build a paradise. You guys are full of resources and stuff like that. And I think people get too deep in the conflict, and then they forget about the solution. So what people should be doing after protesting is going to legislation and creating maybe a civilian review board, nationally or in the state or whatever. Those are the things. That's how the military is governed, right? So certain countries, the military runs the country, whereas our country, the military is run through a civilian organization, through Congress and stuff, right? So why can't police departments be run the same way on a civilian review board? Why are police departments that shoot the people are also involved in, deciding whether they're right or wrong? There should be, it should be an independent, trained, qualified individual. But we're not fighting for that. Somebody gets shot, we go out and we protest, we say Black Lives Matter, and then 3 people get shot in our neighborhood and they're silenced. So you can't have it both ways. If you are going, but Black Lives Matter has to, apply all the time, so.
I definitely agree with that. Actually, I haven't seen. There was just a kid that was shot coming out of Cure or one of the clubs downtown this Sunday. I haven't heard one thing about Black Lives Matter. Well, one thing from Black Lives Matter. They're still talking about this racist protest, and it's like this kid was shot. I don't know him personally, but he goes to my barber, and I've seen him. I tapped him up before, and it's just like you said, Black Lives Matter should be talking about the murders that happen from other civilians, and it's just like. When you're silent about this issue, but you're saying Black Lives Matter, but it's only pertaining to cops killing us, you're not
really
cops. You're giving other people the opportunity to say, okay, well, you're saying this, but you're not acting on it.
Yeah,
and that's really where we're messed up. Like our community isn't together in the sense of us coming together against our own violence, and that's something that really needs to happen. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the black community, right? This was during high school when they had the Stop Snitching shirts going around and all the black community. I'm like, are you kidding me? If you shoot my neighbor, you shoot my friend, I'm snitching. And that's the thing. Black people, they don't want anybody to snitch unless it comes to their family and their friends, and then that's when, we got to find out. Nah, fuck that, man. If that guy's shooting and selling drugs and doing all this shit on the street, yeah, I'm snitching. I'm calling 911. You got a problem, come and find me. You know where I live. You come up in my house, you gonna get it.
I remember that era, and it was like some fake mob like era, and everyone was just like really being on edge because they would see crimes and not report them.
Yeah, and that sentiment I think still exists in the black community. Oh, why you snitching? Oh, don't do this, don't that. And I think that good black people, right? Like black people always joke around that there's black people and then there's niggas, right? So there's two different types of black. Well, the good black people need to start reporting and saying, hey, get these people off of our street. If you're doing drugs, you're selling crimes, you're doing things that is not benefiting the community. Everybody sees something. There's always some old lady looking out a window. People see something, but nobody wants to come forward, and then they want to complain about bad things that happen in the community. Well, you're part of that community. That person who's committing those crimes, that's somebody's son, that's somebody's brother, cousin. And those families need to step up if they're there. If those families are not there and those people don't have that support, then we as a community need to come and give that family that support. If that kid is growing up without a dad, then if you're the neighbor, you need to go and be like, hey, man, what's up, man? Why don't you come hang out with me for today? Let me go teach you a trade or something, or and keep them off the street. So, the question is, so the way I would look at it, if I was in charge of the black community, I don't know, I got appointed the mascot of all black people. I'd be like, all right, what's the number one way that most black people are dying? Is it by cops or is it by other black people?
Look at Chicago.
Right?
So for me, I think that solution needs to come from within. Like why are our own brothers and sisters shooting and killing each other? Why is it predominantly male? So that's one thing I learned in school too. We always talk about violence and lone shooters and stuff, but we never talk about masculinity. All these mass shootings, all these people that are shooting each other, they're males, right? So it's a male problem, it's a guy problem, it's a masculinity problem, it's a gender problem.
One of the things I think it's happening is just people killing for revenge, and it's a cycle that doesn't stop. Where
that's more of that game.
I'm gonna shoot your cat, and it's gonna keep happening. And there needs to be a stop to that cycle. Like death, I understand that frustration. I understand, like to be real, if somebody killed my brother, I'd probably kill them, and I understand it. But it needs to stop, and it's not gonna stop until we start, like you said, start having these conversations with people. And it's just like all of us know people in games. You know what I'm saying? Whether we want to admit it or not.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm not gonna say they'll listen to us, but if you have the opportunity to have a conversation with somebody, just be like, yo, this shit's not worth it. I feel like we all should just be able to do that. Like, you know what I'm saying? They're not gonna shoot you over having a conversation with them. So, not necessarily going to the cops and be like, this person's in the gang, but just having that conversation with that person, like, yo, there's other ways to live your life. And I feel like a lot of people are scared to do that. And then the people that do it, I'm not saying it's not working, but don't get discouraged from doing it if you are doing it, Like, I know a lot of good people at the YMCA who work with teams and know people in the streets and have those conversations. Like you said, a lot of people don't have family. Family who are there, and a lot of people don't have that positive male role model. So you look up to people in the community. You might go to a community center and this is your outlet from the hood. And if you're not having those conversations with these teens, then it's just a cycle. And the teens are really the savages. Like the older heads, our generation and up, they're not out killing people anymore. They grew up. The teens are just like, yo, shoot this, shoot that. And it's a lot. It has to do a lot with hip hop, unfortunately. Not hip hop.
I mean, well, psychologically, they have no prefrontal cortex or whatever.
Ooh, getting into the science. No, but I do agree with you. Like the black leadership, the people with the money, the rappers and stuff. I'm not gonna say rap is bad. Obviously, rap and hip hop has done a lot of good for the black community. But at some point, you got to go. Okay, my rap song, I talk about killing niggas, robbing and raping and selling drugs. Well, this is reality. Yeah, this is music. When you turn it on, when you at the gym and you want to go hard, listen to that trap music. But in real life, yo, you gotta go to school. You gotta learn a trade. You gotta start your own business.
If you look at the really successful rappers like Jeezy, Jay-Z, they used to sell drugs. Jay-Z legit said, Hov did that, so you don't have to go through that. Like, it's him telling his story, but he's not telling you to do it. Jeezy sold drugs. He doesn't do it anymore. A lot of these rappers...
Jay-Z sent his son to, one of the best schools, I think, in Atlanta.
Exactly. Jadakiss' son got a football scholarship. Like, yo, these rappers did that, but they're not doing that anymore. And so... Even these new cats, these 21 Savage, like them, I don't listen to them. So I can't speak for what they talk about. I can't speak for what they do.
They just
but
get high.
that's who a lot of people listen to. And then 21 Savage is Savage. He shoots people. He does that. That's real. But a lot of people glorify that. And
that's why is it celebrated? It should not be celebrated. Like it's one thing to talk about it in fantasy, like you freaking look at like battle rappers and they're talking about doing things and all that. I'm like, I know that's bullshit, but if that guy's actually going out shooting and killing people, he needs to be behind bars. Like, you know, like he's killing other black people. But I think like celebrities and black people with influence and power, they don't make that separation between fact and fiction. So hip-hop is great. There's a lot of stuff that I listen to, and then if you take the time, you're just like, yo, this is some savage things. Like, this is messed up. But who is there clarifying that for the youth, saying, hey, man, this is fiction? If you don't have someone telling you that, you know, when you're learning about, you know, listening to music about drugs and stuff like that, that's really not the goal, right? And if you were doing that, not that I'm condoning it, but the goal is to get out the hood. But nobody wants to. How many people, you know, in Boston has never traveled beyond, like, New York?
Yo, man. I know people hadn't even been to New York.
You know, yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. They don't even, you know, it's like the youth today, right? They have access to Google, right? They have access to all the information in the world, but they don't know how to process that information. And it's up to the adults to help them manage that situation. You know, back in the day, if you wanted information, you have to go to the library, right? You got to go to the library to get a book. Now, anything is at your freaking fingertips, but, you know, black kids still don't know shit. You look at black kids and they know every rap song, they know every dance, they know everything. You tell that guy some algebra equation, or you tell him five times five, whatever, he can't answer it. He can't read. But the kid's like 4 or 5 years old and singing every trap song on the radio. So like, and then, you know, we're the one having the babies now. So where's our guidance? You know, all of our friends, we all have friends now who are having kids. If you see that video of the kid dancing and doing every move and stuff like that, okay, but are you taking the time before he goes to bed to read him a book? Like, that's real. Like you need to be doing that too, instead of him knowing every music. And then if you listen to these conversations these young kids are having, they're like 10, 11, and then they're talking about fucking girls. And
I was on the train the other day, and like I swear to God, he was like 14, 15, and I had my headphones in, and he literally goes to his friend like, "Yo, she's bad." And he's like, but she can't handle this dick. And I was like, what? It's like, what are you?
Well, high school, you know, you officially go to like puberty and stuff like that. But yo, it's even younger. I've seen it even younger, like middle school kids, like elementary school kids, and they just have so much information in their head, but they can't process it. So if we're not guiding them, if we're not creating those images and creating those stories that, hey, this is really not your end goal, this is just a pastime, right? Music and gangbanging it's like fantasy, like playing a video game, right? You play the video game and then you put the video game away because the shit's not real. But we're not doing that. So if we as the black community is not doing that, then of course they're going to grow up and continue. So yeah, we could blame racism and all that stuff now, but really now, can we say that, you know, 20 years from now, when these kids are adults, and if we're stuck in the same situation, then that means our generation didn't do their job.
That's true.
You know, so there has to be that self-accountability, and I think a lot of times the black community blame other people, blame the white man, you know, for all their problems, but where's that self-accountability? Are you doing everything that you can to make your position better?
There's actually a name for the syndrome where it's like, the system, it's when, you know, you're caught, like the system is set up in a certain way, and it, over time, like the system obviously, right, as it was still, is built to keep black people down. And over time, there's a syndrome that where you stop fighting it, you just learn to accept it, and you just end up being that same cycle where you don't really try anymore to get out of it or try and break it. You just,
I know what you're talking about because we talked about the psychology, but it's more like I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's for black people, and that's also for people in general too. Why isn't our schools talking about, you know, credit scores and opening a bank account and writing a check and buying a home and all the things that you actually need to learn?
Why isn't our school telling kids, yo, find a job with tuition reimbursement so you don't have to pay out, like you don't have to owe Navinet or whoever all this money out of college?
Yeah, you know, and then and that's part of the oligarchy not wanting regular folks to be educated. I think the system is set up right now is they do not want the average everyday citizen to be educated and to be well off. Because if you look at the distribution of wealth in America, if you do your research, you realize very few people. And if people were educated and they know how to buy homes and buy equity, like Boston rates, people are paying like $1,200 for like a room. Who the hell would pay that?
Thank you.
We need to say, hey man, I ain't paying that shit. I'm not paying that.
They just showed like pictures of like this new complex that they're building at South Bay.
That pissed me off.
It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be, I forget how many, like dozens or 100 apartments, a hotel,
and
all these like restaurants.
And that's the problem.
And it's like $2,000 for studio, and they
right in the middle of Dorchester.
Affordable.
So
people who live in Dorchester can't afford that.
With quote unquote affordable apartment, they have a select number of those apartments that they're actually going to go buy income. And even those aren't affordable because I make too much for some of those apartments.
Yeah, you make an average day salary, and then you're rich and you don't qualify
even
for
if I qualify. If I made they want you to make like 30,000.
Yeah, they trap you.
And then if you do make 30,000, you still can't afford that and a car payment and car insurance
and food
or to start a family.
Yeah, you're screwed basically. And then the two people is just like what, so basically, if you want to live there, you can't make shit.
But that's what
you have to make way too much.
But that's what the Boston community needs to do. Do you realize that most people who work in Boston don't live in Boston?
Yeah,
they live in the suburbs. You know why we have traffic on I-93 and 95? Because people are leaving the suburbs to come to Boston. Yeah. Why are they capitalizing on all the resources in Boston and then going back home, and the people that live here don't have shit?
And the thing is, people are moving to Boston too. Like if you think about 3 years ago, traffic wasn't as bad as it is now. And I feel like this gentrification is changing that. A lot of people are moving from the suburbs to Boston, so the traffic is more condensed because a lot of the cars are in, like, if you're on 93, the most of the traffic's between exit 18 and, like, 26 going north and then, like, exit 12 going south. After those two exits, there's no more traffic. Yeah. So it's just like, I feel like a lot of people are just moving into the city, and that's kind of messing us up because a lot of people who can't afford to live in a city, who still work in a city. Like, if you work at McDonald's in Roxbury, you can't afford to live in Roxbury.
No. And
that's crazy to me, because it's just like all these rich, mostly white people are moving into Roxbury. Like, I was living on Copeland Street, which is a hood, was a hood, in a white-owned condo, and it's just like a nice street now. And I remember the first hood fight that I saw was on Copeland Street. And now living there 10 years later, it's just like, Copeland.
Well, the problem is we don't own anything. Why are people able to buy properties and stuff? Because we don't have the money. We don't own anything,
Boston is like, you can't, like, if you like, for us minorities.
Well, he's saying, like, back in the day, how come no one bought their property?
Even still here, Asians,
Boston didn't blow up until, like, I would say, like, 8 years ago is when the prices started going on that uptick.
Yeah, that's right.
Yo, Asian families, they'll get like 10 families to come together, and then they'll buy a house, and then they'll flip it, and then you'll have mad people living in a home, and then after that they go and then they buy the next house, and then everybody knows buy it. But you look at what black people spending their freaking money on. Jordans, which are like $400, and now they got Kobe's and Durant's like $400+ on shit that doesn't progress you, and that's one of, I think, the biggest setbacks in the black community is that people are spending money on things that don't get them to the next level. My firearm safety course cost $130. $130. It includes shooting, hours of instruction. You apply for a license to carry. You can turn around and get a job that pays you more. People don't want to take it. It's too expensive. But then a week from them on Facebook, the Jordans, I had to cop me one of those. I had to do that.
220 Jordans, and then they get a scuff on them and they're mad.
Yo, Pierre, your shop is in Swansea by Fall River. It's too far, man. It's like a 45-minute drive. I'm like, yo, you spend 45 minutes on 93 trying to go 3 exits, fam. I set up my classes in non-traffic hours. Yo, it's for real. I set up my classes so that when they start and end, you're not in traffic. I purposely designed that. But then you'll see those same people They'll be like, yo, going to a strip club in freaking Pravi.
Right.
I'm like, bro, you're driving by my shop.
You're spending more than 130 at the strip club.
Yeah, you know, you're literally going to another state, you know, to go get, oh, you know, I can't afford, you know, like, I heard one of the craziest things, like black people were making the argument. So Republicans are trying to get, like, if you want to vote, you have to have a government identification, which I agree with 100%. And then black people say, oh, some black people can't afford a card. I'm like, fam, their elections it's like $20. Elections are like every 4 years, and you're telling me you can't get an ID card? You're telling me they're trying to discriminate against you? Bullshit.
If you can buy a fifth of Henny, you can buy an ID.
You know, and that's the thing. Oh, we can't afford this. Everybody got money. It's how we prioritize our time and money. We prioritize it on bullshit. We want the latest iPhone. We want to go to a concert. We want to get freaking tattoos. We want to go to a strip club. We want to go to a club every weekend. We want to do this. All that shit doesn't do anything for you. You want to get the latest clothes and shit. And that's what black people are doing. The black culture, they are selling that to the city. It's urban. It's cool. It's hip. And then they get somebody like some black guy who got money and who's well famous, Jordan or any of the athletes, and they're pumping out shoes in our community that are $400. Who the hell could? You should be wearing Payless, my homie. For real.
And that's why your means. That's why a lot of like bigger companies, they glorify and they market the urban culture because they know we're more likely to spend the money.
It's like Kanye West said in that song. There's like poor nigga racism and a rich nigga racism. Yeah. It's like poor nigga, you can't buy anything. Don't touch anything. And then there's like rich nigga racism. Oh, buy everything in the store. You know. You know, and that's the thing. It's like we don't prioritize, but people aren't having those conversations, and that goes back to the education, right? Who's having this education with these children saying, "Yo, man, you don't need those $200 True Religion jeans. It costs like freaking $5 to make the jeans, and you're flipping it out for like you're talking about like 1,000% profit." And that's bullshit.
It was crazy. Everyone was wearing those.
Everybody, and look at them now. They're bankrupt. But everybody needs to read Shoe Dog, and I think that I forgot who wrote it, but the book is called Shoe Dog. But they talk about how Homeboy had like $5 in his pocket, and that's how he started Nike. He started Nike with $5 in his pocket. He went overseas. I think it was to China, and then his father had to wire transfer him $500. And from that, he made Nike. Yeah, these people are making these shoes for like $8, $12.
Yeah, exactly. And you flip it around. North Face. I try to North Face coats go for how many $100? Are you kidding me? But if you ain't got one, you ain't hip. You ain't cool. And then you see other black people policing each other to be in that box where you got to spend that money. I remember growing up in high school, like, if you wanted to be cool, you want to talk to the girls, you had to go and get all that stuff. So I was freaking literally working at Burger King making what? What was the minimum wage back then? $8, you know, whatever. And I spent all my money buying Jordans and hoodies and stuff. And then one day I realized, I'm like, what did that shit do for me?
Right, 10 years later,
I got no money.
Absolutely nothing. You think about all,
show for it.
You know, yeah, you spend that money on all that garbage, and then you're like, yo, what could I have done? I could have used that money to start a business. I could have used that money to buy myself a vehicle so I can go to jobs, you know, that allows you to travel and stuff. Why are people able to work in Boston? Because they have cars to go from point A to point B and stuff like that. And in the black community, they glorify spending, overspending, and then they don't talk about being financial. You know, you don't talk about, you know, hey, when I grow up, I want to be a financial investor. How many black kids do you know that say that?
Actually, I know a few.
You know,
it's not a lot.
It's not a lot, but everybody want to be a rapper. Everybody want to be a basketball player. Everybody want to be a football player. Everybody want to be a club promoter, you know, or freaking network marketing, or freaking modeling. Yo, I'm taking a shot at all genders. How many girls you know is a model, but they ain't making no money, or everything. You know, and there's nothing wrong with modeling, but you got to learn how to, you know, monetize it. Exactly. You got to learn how to flip that. Oh, I want to be a rapper. I want to do this. Okay. Well, do you understand how I can't start my own business? Yes, you can. You could be a sole proprietor and then start your business. To be an LLC, a limited liability company, it costs $500. $500, yo. And then now you are an official company. But these ain't the conversations people are having. They want to talk about who's fucking who. You know, every freaking celebrity and everything, and it's all this distraction, you know. It's like everything is faster in the world today, but we still have less time. Think about it. 150, 200 years ago, how long did it take for you to travel? How long for communication to go through? Now communication is an instant. But what we haven't had is more time, right?
Right.
Everything is faster.
Time.
Yeah, right? Computers are faster, phones are faster, everything's faster. But why are we having less and less time? There's less distraction. I mean, there's more distractions now. You need to block all that shit. That's why I hate going on Facebook. Like, Facebook, I make money off of Facebook, so it's hard for me to not get on it because I have to interact with the people. But I hate that shit because I end up wasting my time. I'm looking around, looking through shit. I look around 4 hours later. I was like, damn, what did I get done? Right? And that's part of the thing. Like, we have to have these conversations, and we need to freaking help the black community focus and help people focus in general, not even the black community, but everybody focus on your goals. Like, what is that doing for your community? You spend $400, $200 buying shit. You ever see, everybody has one friend who spent like $15,000 on his car and live in the project. But
I know several.
But you can hear that car. Yo, that car drive by your house, your whole house shakes. Your whole house shakes, right? And then that motherfucker drives right to the project. He'll be that same motherfucker on Facebook talking about, yo, white man holding me down, systematic oppression, Nah, fam. It takes two to tango, bro. It takes two to tango. Like, you gotta be financially... Oh, DJ Flu Bomb? You know, so, and it's like, but we're not having those conversations. You know?
That's actually really...
I wanted to start my business. Who helped me? Nobody. I use Google. Can anybody use Google? Yes. But people ask basic questions that they could find the answer to online.
I hate to do this, man, but we do have to cut the conversation short.
Yeah, but...
We gotta have you back.
Yeah, this conversation is hot
Too
right now.
real.
We definitely want to have you back.
Real quick, I just want to ask, since we are wrapping up, where can we find, because I'm actually interested in your course, where can we find a class in Dorchester? Where do we go to register?
You can find us on Facebook, Solomon Firearms, Solomon Firearms Training. You can find us on all social media platforms. Our official website is www.SalomonFirearms.com. On Facebook and Instagram, we're known as Salomon Firearms. We're on YouTube. You can find us on YouTube. My phone number is 857-523-0776, and my email is prs@SalomonFirearms.com. But yeah, you can Google me, find me. My name is Pierre Solomon. I'm the only black guy toting guns on Facebook.
Yeah, the course is $130, you said, right?
Yeah, $130.
So it's affordable, $130.
$130. Everybody got $130. It's just, are you willing to spend it? Are you willing to prioritize, your money and your time for that? We're asking one day for you to go and apply for your license to carry and be a legally armed citizen.
And I'll be there. Mauling.
There you go.
Hey, and that's what we need to have. It's all about the education. So, yes, I'm doing firearms training, but now my business is developing. I started an entrepreneur business network where not only do I train firearms, but now I'm also teaching people how to start your own business, how to monetize Facebook. If you're on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube all the time, how can you make money off of that? And I think that's the second half of it. Is not only training people and getting them licensed, but helping other people do the same thing you did, but better and faster. Like my instructors now, because I also teach instructor courses, they're able to cover the gap that took me 3-4 years in less than half that time, in a quarter of that time. Because I'm creating a system for them to follow, and it streamlines that progress. And that's what it should be. Every generation should be better off than the last one. So
everybody, if you missed that, definitely rewind right now. Grab this man's
That's the keys of the week.
Pierre is the best resource you're gonna have.
Oh man,
he's gonna change your life.
Only your welcome.
Yeah. Pierre, thank you for coming in.
No, thank you for inviting me, man. I appreciate it, brother.
All right. As always, catch us on Instagram and Twitter at Miscom Podcast. We're on Facebook, Miscommunication Podcast. Please leave us your feedback, and y'all better show up for this course. It's a great resource.
I'll be there.
I would be there, but I already got my LTC, so.
and that's the other thing too. Like too many people, they take one class and then they think they're like an expert. Like, any type of training, any type of education is life. It's a lifelong pursuit, right? You don't go take a karate class and then next thing you know,
you're the next karate kid.
You have to put in the time in the training. So yes, getting your license is the one thing, but you got to further that education, or else you might find yourself in a situation where you have a firearm, you're interacting interacting with law enforcement, but you never had that additional training and education to properly navigate, you know, those potential dangers that exist.
All right, Pierre, once again, thank you, and we'll catch y'all next week.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All
All right. Yo.
Damn.
All right, Facebook. We out.
Kept going on.